Baja California, Mexico. In the 19th century, Jesuit missionaries traveling through this area came upon what is now known as the Painted Cave of El Carmen. Adorning the cave walls, they saw giant figures that somewhat resembled humans, but with extra digits on their hands and feet.
What's fascinating is when the Jesuits showed up and spoke to the Kachini people who lived in the area in the 1700s, they claimed that a race of giants made the rock art there. They said they came from the north, male and female. And when you look at the rock art, you have these giant beings, and they have 6 fingers on their hands, which is very interesting. Polydactyly is a rare genetic condition in humans, and it causes the growth of extra digits, extra fingers, extra toes. But in the ancient world, it's associated with the divine, the supernatural, and giants. In fact, from places like isolated Pacific Islands, Australia, Botswana, Africa, Malta, the American Southwest, you have extra digits associated with giant beings. Now, it's pretty specific iconography to be found in cultures that have little or no contact.
Descriptions of giants with extra fingers and toes can even be found within the pages of the Bible's Old Testament.
In 2 Samuel 21:20, it says, "There was a war at Gath, where there was a man of great stature who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, and he also was born to the giants." So here we have a biblical description of a giant with 6 toes and 6 fingers, very similar to what we see in that petroglyph in Mexico.
While the mysterious cave art and the
Several years ago, well-known Nephilim expert Steve Quayle broke a story about a giant that was killed in Afghanistan. He had an interview with the pilot that flew the giant's body out on a C-130 aircraft. The story was covered on the net and on Coast to Coast AM. Popular radio host George Norman.
Back in December of 2008, LA, Steve Quayle was on the program, as he's been so often, and he brought us that pilot anonymously. Pilot did not want his name disclosed, and he talked about this very bizarre story of how he flew this dead giant out to some base in Ohio.
Describe exactly what you saw.
Well, when we came up, basically came outside, we had a normal 463 pilot loaded down with what they told us was a giant.
For LA, the Nephilim has been his life. He's done hundreds of radio and TV interviews over the years on the subject and received an honorary doctorate for his research. Researching and writing about it since 1988, Watchers 10 is the culmination of those years of research, exploration, interviews, and lab tests, proving these facts are real without a worldwide cover-up that has actively been concealing the truth. Watchers director Richard Shaw also has done a myriad of radio and TV interviews on topics ranging from the Torah codes to UFOs. On one of those interviews, he spoke with a caller who was in Special Forces in Afghanistan back in 2002. After the show, they talked for a long time, and it became clear that this was one of the men that actually shot and killed the giant. Then later, LA happened to meet another Special Forces soldier who could confirm these stories. Neither of these men wished to reveal their identity. We filmed them in remote locations because of their military backgrounds and the sensitive nature of what they're revealing, but both felt it was imperative to finally tell the truth.
You were in Afghanistan in 2002, and you were called into a very remote section of Afghanistan because a patrol had basically gone missing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So they were just around for miles.
Right.
So very remote.
Yeah, very remote. So we flew in to about 4 kilometers. We're hiking through the same area where they were supposed to make one of their checkpoints, one of their routing points. And before we left, there was all kinds of what happened with an ambush. That was even odd because at point of ambush, we called for maybe close air support, something, okay? There was no calls made, just off the break. So we're coming down a mountainside, and it was a nice path, goat path. As we bent around this corner, you could see this opening of the cave. There's a cave as we're coming around. And then I see there's a lot of rocks, which is another oddity, and then bone matter. When I'm not close enough to identify what kind of bones, but I did see something I knew was a piece of our communication with it. So instantly, we're thinking ambush, maybe animal, could be anything. And there was enough room in front of this cave, but it had a sheer drop off. But there was enough room that we actually got into a decent dispersal in case of ambush.
You see something coming out of the cave, and it's moving with a speed and agility that catches you off guard. Everybody.
And he comes out. It was a man at least 12 to 15 feet. This is a monster. Red beard. Then his hair was long past the shoulder. A scarlet red. And Dan runs at him and starts shooting, which broke all of us into the canal. Because it was so little.
Now your training is kicking in.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Muscle memory. That complete muscle memory. While Dan is moving at him, another bro of mine's laying down fire and I start firing. He skewers Dave. He's now got him on this pipe. They went through. And he's still got him. And he's coming after more. We all just clicked in. I don't know what it was, but I remember we're all like, shoot him in the face, shoot him in the face. And all weapons components were in forward. We had 308s, and we had 750s. This is sounding longer than it took. We're talking 30 seconds. And he's taking multiple hits and it's still moving.
He talked about this giant being 1,100 pounds, anywhere from 10 to 15 feet long, and it was killed. It was apparently shot somewhere in a cave in Afghanistan, but before it was shot, it lunged at several of our troops, our soldiers. It may have even gorged somebody. It was just a bizarre story, and it just sounds like the Nephilim from the Bible, doesn't it?
That's why we're so fascinated by this. Why? If people have a right to know about this stuff. I mean, if there are 15-footers or 18-footers roaming the planet, and our military has brought them down, I mean, we have a right as American citizens. I mean, this isn't classified military stuff. This is something that we need to know, and it points back to the biblical prophetic narrative. What are your thoughts on that?
I think here's my personal opinion. My personal opinion is if it points that the Bible's accurate, they don't want it. If it goes against Darwinian evolution, it's not to be spoken of.
So you're out in the boonies running around looking for high-value targets.
Correct. And we're doing those operations, and as we're getting into firefights, we're getting into different scrimmages, you want to put it that way, we would come back to the base and we started hearing this rumor about a unit that killed this, what they started calling this really tall person. At first I didn't think anything of it, then come to find out that the person that they killed actually was 3 times the size of a man, had extra digits on their hand and digits on their feet, and had red hair, and a special unit had come in and wanted this target. What we'd heard that they had killed this thing inside a cave, or the mouth of a cave, and it was common knowledge among the military to hear this.
And when you say common knowledge, what do you mean? I mean, how's that work?
Years later, come to find out, when I had returned from Afghanistan and had met other military members that had not been in the operations with me, if you would bring up the giant of Kandahar, they knew about it. When you first hear it, you're thinking like, this has got to be a joke, this has got to be a hoax. But then after things go down a certain way and you keep hearing it, you start to realize it's not a joke. They kept telling us to keep our weapons high, which means normally it's 2 to the chest, 1 to the head, but they kept telling us to put it towards a man's head and put it higher. So we would question, why do they want us to shoot higher than a man's head?
That's bizarre.
It is.
Our contact said 2002 is when they shot this 15-footer or taller, and you're now in this, you know, in the service around 2005. This word has gotten out, and what I find interesting here too is that if you're going to create a hoax, I get that, but you got details: 6 fingers, red hair, double rows of teeth, 6 digits on the toes, and of course that brings it right back into what we hear about in the biblical prophetic narrative, specifically the Nephilim. Your thoughts?
I agree. I will tell you that when I was doing my time in the service, and the stuff I saw, some of it I couldn't explain, like lights in the sky during firefights, like orbs, or lights looking the size of a softball. Look that size looking up in the sky making weird noises. And even going to Iraq myself and being near Hadifa Dam and seeing the prisoners underneath the dam, and the prisoners would scream and there'd be this awful feeling underneath the dam, and later finding out in the Bible that angels locked underneath there, it talks about.
And this Hadifa Dam is the Euphrates.
It's Euphrates.
There's an angel supposedly locked underneath the Euphrates,
Correct.
which is released in the book of Revelation.
Correct.
That's bizarre. So you're actually at this site, and soldiers are being locked in prison underneath the Hadifa Dam,
Correct.
and they're freaking out.
They're freaking out. They said they could feel it. In fact, the people who would guard them they would draw straws to see who would actually take them.
No one wanted to get there.
Nobody wants to go down. Going back to Afghanistan, we would hear these things. We would hear the locals talk about rumors of these giants.
What would the locals say? How would they talk about it?
They say that they lived in the caves and they would eat people, and
They were cannibals.
they were cannibals. And we, at the time, chalked it up to our United States as Bigfoot. And we realized that every culture had some kind of folklore, but to actually all of a sudden hear that a military unit had killed something
And you have to assume that the giant is not alone, that the giant is not the only being living on this planet. There's got to be a whole school of them somewhere. Maybe he's got a female mate. Maybe he's got children. Who knows? Unfortunate that he had to attack our soldiers rather than be somewhat peaceful. But I guess that comes with the territory.
Danny was dead. Okay. And Wyatt is a good man. Probably one of the best men I know, now dead. Before I'd left, they were already starting what they call a 9-line, which is a medevac request. They're sending out a medevac request, then all of a sudden it's not. All of a sudden we had helicopters show up because, like I told you, it was a large precipice and a sheer drop. So the helicopter just came up from the drop. They had dropped netting, which is like cargo netting. It's like squares. We were told we had to bundle him up. And we did another bigger helicopter, but it's almost like a Jolly Green Giant used to look back in the day that could get, through this area. Because the mountains, you gotta remember, Chinooks could only go in certain places because they had enough lift. And so we got him on there. The thing was too big, we couldn't move it. It smelled worse than a skunk. The corpse that's been around for a while.
Really foul.
Oh, it was like a combination because of the, how do you put that, the persistence of a skunk smell, but once the helicopter came in, dropped its little hook, and off he goes. The communication was sent out. We had a very large, possible human creature.
There you are in the hills of Afghanistan. How many troop members are you with?
We had 6 on my crew, and when we say go to Afghanistan, for us, we did not fly into the wilderness. We actually flew into a base. I guess this thing was transloaded out of the mountains by a C-847. But I could see that it did have the 6 fingers. I remember taking my foot up and placing it up next to its foot, and it was extremely large. We estimated it about 12 feet, give or take. What I can tell you is the weight of the thing. Basically, it was approximately 1,500 pounds when it was getting on the aircraft. Now, if you take away the talent, weight, and all the rigging that we had to hold this thing down, we figured it was around 1,100 pounds.
Of course we're upset. That's a given. Okay. We lost a very good guy. But add to that, you're discussing something that even in our after action report, they're saying rewrite it. And we had to rewrite it the way we wanted.
How many fingers?
6 toes.
Six toes.
And the nails were weird because if you see somebody that ever has, I don't know what it's called, but
Like a fungus on
their nails, how they get pointy and they're like gnarly, that's what they look like.
I'm going to show you an artifact. It's a bronze artifact. We had it tested. It's about almost 98% copper, pure copper, but it's bronze. Does this look familiar?
I can confirm it's probably about a 10-foot pole connecting a flashed split pole, like I guess they would have done back in the old days.
Was it about this long?
Oh, easily.
This was found in the wilds of Michigan. We have come to call it the Nephilim lance. It is definitely not a sword. It's a pike, it's a lance. And what, you put a staff on this thing, good luck trying to wield it. And what's interesting is the weight of this lance ties into the biblical prophetic narrative. Talks about the weight of the spearhead was 300 shekels, talking about one of the giants, I think it's Ishbi-Benob. The giant spearhead is 300 shekels. When you convert that to pounds, that's 8.5 pounds. That's what this is.
Jesus saith unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father, but by me. If thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and shalt believe in thine heart that God hath raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. For with the heart man believeth unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation.